What's up guys? Today I want to talk about some new brushes I picked up from Real Techniques. They came out with a volume 3 of their Brush Crush collection. I reviewed volume 2 here on the channel if you want to go see it, and a lot of you guys had some pretty negative feedback about the shape of the handles, and I have to be honest, while the brushes themselves function really well, you can go check out the full review if you want to, but long story short, I feel like while I liked the way the brushes perform for the most part, I think the shape of the handle might have been what deterred me from continuing to use them, because although they are beautiful display pieces, I feel like that's what this Brush Crush volume is supposed to be, are just really beautiful but still very functional brushes. I just didn't display these, because they have this square base that are balanced. I just don't display my brushes that way, you know what I mean? So I just didn't end up using these as much as I have a lot of my other Real Techniques brushes. But they've actually gone back to the same handle shape as they have for volume 1, which I actually personally never tried. I think they were supposed to be more like a unicorn type of feel to them. So they have these tapered pointed handles, great if you like to use or display your brushes in like little decorating beads. You can just stick the handles right in there so your brushes sit just like this. That way you can see these gorgeous handles. They're like multi-chromatic. I feel like they're not going to come off. Well, maybe you can see all the colors here. Hopefully a close-up does these justice, because more often than not on camera I think they come off as an orange, but the reality is that there is, orange and yellow, green, purple, blue. Like it's a rainbow in here. They're very multi-chromatic and very sleek and streamlined feeling. And they sit in the hand really nicely too. Like the brush head and ferrule area feel a little bit weighted, so they just have a little bit more of a luxurious feel to them. But you're not dealing with kind of a twisted, bulkier handle sort of situation. So there are 5 brushes that I have found in this line. I bought all of these from Ulta. Maybe they'll come out with some exclusive for other retailers, their own Real Techniques website, but for now, this is all I see that is available. So I picked up number 1, which is a foundation brush. This is a pretty densely packed foundation brush. It's very softly domed around the ends, and I hope you'll still be able to see here. It's slightly tinted blue. That's not from any product I've used with this. I've only used this for foundation. All of these brushes have a soft blue tint to the end of their bristles, which is very pretty, but the rest of the hairs or fibers are white. But you can see I've already done a number on mine with products. So to give you a little bit of a comparison, my go-to foundation brush, I prefer to apply my foundation with a brush, and that brush actually is the Real Techniques buffing brush. I can't find my newer one. This is like my original Real Techniques buffing brush that I bought when the brand first launched. So the form has changed a little bit. The bristles are a little bit softer, a little bit more dense, I think, in the newer version, but roughly the shape is the same. So you can see, I think that the Brush Crush, I'm gonna fumble over that collection name this whole video, I bet you. The Brush Crush version is quite a bit more dense. I think that might be what makes the bristles feel a little bit more stiff as well. There's just a little bit less space to play in the original buffing brush version, but I actually find that that increased density lends itself more to a stippling motion should you want to use it to blend your blush into your foundation, your bronzer, just kind of clean things up, whereas my buffing brush, because those bristles are spaced a little bit farther out, they tend to leave more brush marks unless I'm going in like broader circular motions. When I do that, buffs in beautifully. But yeah, this number 1 from the 3rd volume of the Brush Crush collection just might do both a little bit better. Then brush number 2 is a blush brush from the Brush Crush collection. Say that 5 times fast. So this brush is pretty dense, has even more tapered bristles than the foundation brush you can see, and more of a rounded like ball head type end. Kind of reminds me of the contour brush that I also love from Real Techniques. It's probably like 1.5, 2 times the size and quite a bit more dense. So while I find I can use the contour brush not just for contour, but also for, say, setting my under eye area, applying a highlight to the tops of my cheekbones, the Brush Crush blush brush, I didn't think I would have to say that again in this video, but I got it. Number 2 from this new collection, we'll just say that, is more effective at laying down more product. I think that density really helps you apply with more of a heavy hand, which is why it's better for me as a blush brush and less as a highlight. Like, you're gonna get a very intense highlight if you use it for that. And I could see using it, it's a little bit less precise than that contour brush, but it's still small enough to where you could get a good amount of product if you were to use it to set your under eye area or, anywhere else around your face. But overall, I like it as well. Oh, Also, it's not so dense that once you kind of plop down your product, you can't blend it out. I have had that happen with brushes where they pick up a ton of product, they lay it down on the face, and then when you go to blend it out, the product just kind of stays right where you put it, and it's really hard to blend out. This really does both well. Next up, brush number 3 is a big old fluffy powder brush. It's actually just called a powder brush. I added the big old fluffy, but it is in fact big and fluffy, like pretty large. Let me see if I can, like here for comparison, I don't know if this is something everyone might have, but an e.l.f. complexion brush, like you can see the two side by side. The Real Techniques just feels, maybe it's part of the weight too, it has that weight in the upper part of it, but it just feels and looks more substantial to me than a lot of other powder brushes out there. Just like the other two brushes I mentioned, this is pretty densely packed as well, especially for a powder brush, and it actually says on the Ulta website it's for intensified powder application, so I could totally see that and have experienced that with this brush. It just picks up a lot. So whether you're using setting powder, or I used it with the Moon Play Cosmetics Stroboscope powder in the shade Dolly Sand. I've gotten on this kick where, hear me out before you call me crazy, this is actually like a translucent powder that a lot of people I think use for highlight. It has a green tint to it. It's a soft brown base, green tint to it. A lot of people would use it for highlight. In fact, I have in the past, but I actually have started using this to set my powder or my face all over, kind of like I would the Laura Mercier Translucent Loose Setting Powder Glow, or the Lancome, my Absolute Pêche, that glowing setting powder that I would use all over my face. I use this in the same way with this brush, and I definitely have to use a light hand. Otherwise, it definitely looks like I am have like an alien green tinge to me, whereas other brushes I could go in a little bit more, blend it out a lot easier all over my face for a more softly luminous glow. So because of that, I started using this more exclusively for clear translucent setting powder, which I honestly don't use all that much, and bronzer, which they suggest to use on the product page itself. But it is a little, unless you're going for like large bronzed areas across your face or even your body, it's pretty big for that. So I would say unless you like a nice big dense brush for applying bronzer, maybe use it instead for setting powder, but do expect it, you know, might be good for baking. Again, I don't really bake though, so this probably has less of a space in my everyday makeup routine than a lot of these other brushes, but it's a beautiful brush and I could totally see it being useful for a lot of other people if they think, you know, they would use it. Moving on to brush number 4, a contour brush. This is one of those classic angled, fluffier contour brushes. I would say the least dense brush though of all those that I've talked about, and also the least weighted. For whatever reason, this feels like it's a little bit less weighted here up front, and like I said, less dense here in the bristles. I almost expected for it to pick up less product. I've been using it a lot with my Believe Beauty. This is the In the Tropics bronzing powder in Tahitian Sun. Have really been loving it, but depending on the brush that I use, it can take a couple of swirls and lots of building up on the cheeks to really make it pop on my face. I kind of expected this brush to require a lot of building in there, but I did quite a few swirls and boy did it deposit a lot of product on my cheek. So what I will say is that don't be fooled. It might feel a little bit less dense, less substantial than the other brushes, but it packs a punch. It definitely picks up a lot of product, and just like a lot of other tapered brushes like this, really great for getting in the hollows of your cheeks. I like this better than you know, the larger powder brush for bronzing or contouring or bronzing, whatever you prefer to do, especially when it comes to getting in this area between my eyebrow and my hairline, because depending on how well I'm like upkeeping my face shaving, this real estate right here can grow and shrink depending on the day. So I like a nice, relatively narrow brush to really get in there and bronze it up, as well as my forehead, and get close to my hairline. This is just more of an everyday brush for me when it comes to bronzing, contour, etc., than something like that larger powder brush. Last up, brush number 5 is a classic shadow brush. This is a densely packed flat shader with a tapered rounded tip. Great for packing shadow across the lid. That tapered tip is especially good for getting a nice clean cut if you like to do cut creases or do more precise work in the under eye area. I love a brush like this as kind of a one and done situation when it comes to not only blending powder across the lid, kind of blending it up through the crease, and then using whatever powder is left just to run that along the lower lash line. It's a really great one and done brush in that kind of way. Plus, you can use it with any sort of medium you can think of. I mean, powder, cream, mixing medium, you name it. It's actually what I was using in my last video where I uploaded a couple looks using the Jackie Aina and Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. I spritzed it with some mixing medium or like setting spray, dipped it into one of the shadows so I could really intensify the pigment and press it across my lid. And then actually before that, I had used it to prime my eyes using my MAC Painterly paint pot. So it's just one of those brushes that you can use for everything. And it's a classic shade that I can personally never have enough of in my collection. So to recap, those are the 5 new brushes in the Brush Crush collection. Nailed it. Hopefully the last time I have to say it. Overall, you know, like I said, I think a lot of these brushes do some unique things that are unique apart from the Real Techniques brushes I already have in my collection. Do I think I needed them? Like, do they serve very unique purposes in my collection? No. They're beautiful display pieces that I think if you love that combination of having really beautiful brushes combined with brushes that are truly functional, multifunctional in many of these cases, these are definitely a good collection to reach for, especially if you saw volume 2 and you just weren't too keen on the brush handle on these. These might be a better pick for you, but I definitely think they are best as display pieces, especially when, you know, as I'm holding these up to the original collection. Like, I travel with these all the time and I can't see myself throwing these in my makeup bag just because they are so much longer. They're going to take up that much more space, but they sure are gorgeous. So I hope this video was helpful. If you were interested in these, had spied these, but weren't quite sure what the deal with them was, I hope this helped you out a little bit. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.